The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law.
Help! I need somebody. Help! Not just anybody. Help! You know I need someone. Help!
You got to let them scream there at the end. That's good. Hey, I'm Zach Spencer. This is The Law Show on CL 650. Today we're focusing on protecting yourself from a lawsuit or loss. In studio, Joe Murphy, QC from Murphy Batista. His name is there on the logo. And Jeff Neuenberg, also from Murphy Batista. Now, Joe, can you explain to people QC, Queen's Counsel, what is the differentiator there for a lawyer that has that designation next to their name?
Zach, a QC is a award given out by the provincial government every year. It's given to 20 to 30 lawyers per year, and it's given either because the lawyer has done a lot of work for the profession or is really, really good at what they do. Mm-hmm. So
which are you?
I think, well, I do a lot of lecturing, and I think maybe both, and I've done a lot of trials, a lot of really interesting cases. So
it's an honor,
I do
then.
both. I got mine in 1999, so quite a few years ago. It is an honor for sure.
And is it voted on by your fellow members of the bar?
No, it's selected by the Attorney General and judges from the three levels of court, from the Court of Appeal, from the Supreme Court, and from the Provincial Court.
So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, Jeff, Joe on a previous show mentioned that you went to law school with his son. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, you think it's harder for him at the firm because he's the son, or is it harder for the new guy?
I don't know. Mike's a good guy, and he's smart and very capable. So I don't think.
Well, maybe I should ask Joe. Are you harder on him because he's your son?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. And most of the work that my son Mike does in the firm is working with other lawyers, because for him to work with me on a case is just a little awkward because of the fact he's my son. So it's better to keep at arm's length and do work with the other senior lawyers in the firm.
Now, you obviously have a QC next to your name. Is this something that was a calling to you to be so involved? Like, what is it about law that drew you and your family towards this? Is it something that you always wanted to do, or is it something that when you started you got more fascinated by it?
My father, who's now gone, was a radiologist. My mother was a nursing instructor. So I grew up in a family that was medical, not legal.
Oh, yeah.
But it was my mother who, when I was in about grade 9 or 10, said UBC offers a combination, a commerce degree and a law degree. You should take that. I grew up in Calgary, so the idea of going to Vancouver to go to university sounded really good. And I followed my mother's advice, and her advice was always really good. So graduated 7 years later with the 2 degrees, and then got into law. I actually was fortunate, Zach, because when I was going through law school, I was working as an insurance adjuster.
Really?
So I worked 25 hours a week as an insurance adjuster and learned the business from the insurance end during that time. Invaluable training. So when I came out of law school, I had the legal knowledge that you get through law school that has limited sort of benefit. But more importantly, I had this experience of working in the insurance industry, working in auto claims, and this is just as ICBC was coming in. This is, albeit 1974, so it was way back. But I had those two, and that sort of funneled me into doing injury and insurance cases. And today, my firm does nothing but injury and insurance cases. We don't act for insurance companies. We act against the insurance companies.
So what did you learn from working as an adjuster that helps you today, do you think?
I learned that insurance companies have claims. They like to get the claims finished and settled or just closed. That an insurance adjuster needs to have justification before he or she makes a payment on a claim, and that they want to do a good job. So really, it gives you an insight into and really a respect for the insurance adjusters that are handling the claim on the other side of the table, so to speak.
All right. Well, I thought I'd get into a little bit of background there. It's good to know. So it's very interesting, your take on that, and we're going to go through up against a lawsuit or a loss, what you should do. Now, if a person is injured in an accident, what can you do to protect yourselves from liability?
Well, you can have insurance. You can have adequate insurance. If you're dealing with a motor vehicle, if I own a vehicle and loan it to you and you have a terrible accident caused by your reckless driving, I'm liable with you. It's called vicarious liability, and in British Columbia, and in fact across Canada, the owner is liable with the driver for the driver's negligence. So you have to be aware of that. You have to be conscious of that. When I drive my car in the States, I make sure I've got extra insurance coverage. I am careful to buy lots of insurance coverage. I buy $5 million liability. I buy the additional underinsured motorist protection coverage, both from ICBC and from my homeowner. I like being overinsured because it means I don't have to worry about anything bad happening.
Now, if you're a snowbird and you take your family car down to California or Arizona or what have you for, say, 3 months in the wintertime, does ICBC look at that differently than if you were driving it here in Vancouver, Richmond, or Burnaby?
If you're on holidays and driving through the States, you don't need to say to ICBC, my car is in the United States. But if, for instance, you have a place in Palm Springs and you have a car that goes down there for the winter, you need to tell them where the car is because the insurance rate differs depending upon which area the car is being operated in.
Do you think most people do that?
Probably not. Probably thinking, well, it's not necessary. On a holiday, going from A to B to C, you don't need to do that because the car's moving from one place to another. But when it is down in Palm Desert, Palm Springs for 3 months or 4 months or 6 months, then the insurance company should be notified of that. And it's probably going to result in the premium going up a little bit, not a lot.
So that's based on it's a higher crime. We'll say you're in an area that's got a higher break-in, enter.
Higher accident rate.
Yeah.
The rates to insure a car in Vancouver are higher than to insure the same car in Penticton because the accident rates are higher in Vancouver. Maybe there's theft rates that are higher in Vancouver, but overall, ICBC knows from its experience that it's more likely to have to pay out on a Vancouver car than it is on a Penticton car.
Now, I've lived in British Columbia for 25 years, but when I lived in Ontario, it wasn't the car that really had the insurance. It was an insurance policy that covered that car, but also covered other cars in the home. For example, if you had 3 cars, say you had a husband and a wife, each had a car, and then you had a little sports car you drove on the weekend, all 3 of them would be covered under one policy. But in British Columbia, it's different. It's each individual vehicle, right? So how does that change things on your end when somebody gets into an accident or there's an injury?
Well, the private industry does put cars together in a package in insurance. So if the family has 2 or 3 vehicles, they're all in a single policy covered. ICBC operates on a vehicle-by-vehicle basis. So really, there's no difference to insuring a vehicle. It is more expensive, but the policy, the coverage that people in BC get is far better than just about anywhere else in Canada. We have the best insurance system in North America.
And that's you, a lawyer who deals with ICBC regularly. You're saying that they have the best coverage.
They have the best package. They're, in my mind, the best run insurance company in North America. They're good to deal with, albeit problems we have on cases where we have big fights and sometimes it goes to trial. But generally, it's very well run. It's professionally run. It's different than private companies because they publish their annual statement, money that came in and money that went out. And while the rest of Canada dealing with private insurers was faced with these rocketing premiums, and the insurance companies were saying the sky is falling, we need to change the system, we need to cut out some of these claims. In BC, it's transparent, and in fact, the claims weren't going up. What was happening in the rest of Canada is the rate of return to the insurer on their investments, they invest the premiums, that went down. They lost money, But the insurance industry generally never says we lost money on our investments. They point to the people making claims and say, we've got a problem with these. So our insurance premiums compared to Ontario, which is a good comparison, have been more or less level over 10 years. The Ontario premiums have gone up substantially in 10 years in spite of their coverage being reduced and reduced and reduced.
But then you also have insurance companies in the other parts of the country that are insuring cars and homes and businesses as well. ICBC is just doing mostly automobiles. So if they have a big ice storm and they have lots of claims, then they're going to try and get it somewhere. So they would jack up car rates, right?
Well, yeah, ICBC knows that they insure essentially all the vehicles in BC. They know what their loss experience is. They know that in the winter months they have more accidents because it's slipperier. That just makes sense. And that's all built into the premium.
But with the other insurance companies in the East who don't just do cars, they do other, so they've got losses, they try to make it up, so maybe they do it through insurance policies.
Well, when they lose money on any aspect of their business, the investments, they look to recover it, but generally the big companies back east that, for instance, do homeowner policies, they will take this package of 10,000 homeowner policies, and they will sell part of that coverage to another insurance company. Mm-hmm. They want to offload part of the risk. Mm-hmm. So that's very common in the insurance industry, where a group of insurers together will share a risk so that none of them are really exposed in the event there's a windstorm or a hailstorm.
Interesting.
Insurance companies, it's all about risk, and it's all about spreading the risk around so it's not too great.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about you own a car and you loan that car to somebody to drive. What is the liability if somebody gets into an accident? How is that going to work? When we come back on The Law Show, we're speaking with Joe Murphy and Jeff Neuenberg from Murphy Batista when we come back next on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.